Hey, Fortress friends! I picked a book today to read to you called Catching the Moon. It's the story of a young girl's baseball dream. And the reason I picked it is because when I was a young girl, I loved baseball. Not as much as the girl in this story, but I loved playing baseball. When I was in fourth grade, I started playing on a team called the Diamonds, and I wanted to be a pitcher so bad. I wanted to be the one that threw the ball to the batter to see if they could hit it. And I practiced and practiced and practiced. And finally, when I was in sixth grade, I got good enough to be the pitcher. But the problem was I wore glasses. And in Texas, it gets so hot in the summer, as you know, and I would sweat and my glasses would start sliding off the end of my nose. And it was so embarrassing. And then one time I was pitching, and this boy I really, really liked because he was super cute was watching. And he was standing right behind the pitcher, right behind the batter, watching through the fence. And I got so nervous that I accidentally rolled the ball to the pitcher instead of throwing it. Because when I pulled back to pitch the ball, I hit the side of my leg and the ball went to the ground and rolled. And oh my goodness, that boy laughed so hard at me. And I was so embarrassed. But I didn't let it stop me. I kept playing baseball for a couple more years until I, I guess I got tired of it. Or maybe I don't know why. I didn't love it as much as Marcinia, though. That's the problem. But she loves baseball. So let's find out what happens. It's written by Crystal Hubbard and illustrated by Randy Dubose. Okay. Can you see the pictures? Cool. Marcinia Lyle loved baseball. She loved the powdery taste of dust clouds as she slid through them. She loved the way the sun heated her hair as she crouched in the outfield, waiting for fly balls. And she loved the sting in her palm as a baseball slammed into it right before tagging a runner out. If there was anything in the world better than baseball, Marcinia didn't know what it was. She dreamed of growing up to be a professional ball player so she could play all the time. I wish I knew why you liked baseball so much, Mama sighed as she gently washed Marcinia's hair. Marcinia shrugged. Mama often questioned Marcinia's interest in baseball, particularly when washing the field dirt from her hair. It's just fun, Marcinia said, giving her mother the same response she always did. Playing dolls is fun, Mama said. Marcinia blew a puff of lather from her palm. Not as fun as baseball. After Marcinia crawled into bed, Papa appeared in the doorway. What'd you learn in school today? He asked. Marcinia thought for a moment. Some history? Papa crossed his arms. And how did your team do in the game after school? Harold got a triple in his first at bat, and Clarence tagged out 2 runners, Marcinia said eagerly. I struck out my first time at bat, but then I caught a deep fly ball that would have scored the tying run for the other team if I'd missed it. We won, 11-10. Marcinia's smile gleamed like a noonday sun as she shared the details of her victory. We won the game, she said once more. Also, you ripped another dress, Papa said, dismayed. Then he kissed Marcinia's cheek and turned off the light, leaving her alone with moonlight and shadows and her dream of becoming a baseball player. The tiny house was still. Marcinia could almost hear her mother's needle and thread moving through the fabric as she sat at the kitchen table mending Marcinia's dress. After a while, Marcinia heard Papa's voice. I wish she would think about school as much as she thinks on baseball. She wants to be a ball player when she grows up, Mama said with a sad chuckle. I just want her to be happy. She'll be what every other girl in this neighborhood will be, Papa grumbled. A teacher, a nurse, or a maid, Mama said softly. I'm going to score 3 runs tomorrow, Marcinia promised the darkness as she clapped her hands over her ears. I'm going to hit a home run, too. She doesn't look very happy, does she? Listening to her parents talk about her dream as though it's not important. The next day after school, Marcinia went to the playground. The older girls stayed at the hardtop to play hopscotch, jump rope, or jacks. The boys were huddled at the mound, talking quietly. They cast excited glances at a man who was watching the field from the bleachers. Do you know who he is? Harold asked Marcinia as she joined the group. He tipped his head toward the man. That there is Mr. Gabby Street. He's running a baseball camp this summer. Marcinia knew about Gabby Street. He was the manager for the St. Louis Cardinals. He had led his Cardinals to the National League pennant in 1930, and the Cardinals had topped that next year by winning the 1931 World Series. What's he want? Marcinia asked. Kids for his baseball camp, Harold said. It's going to be right here on this field every day except Sunday. Sundays are game days. What's it cost? Marcinia asked. It's free, said Clarence. All you need is your own glove and baseball cleats, Harold added. Marcinia could hardly contain her excitement. She would do anything to be one of the players in Mr. Street's camp. That afternoon, Marcinia played with purpose. She scooped grounders, catching them into her body to make sure they didn't bounce away. She slid into second, keeping low so she wouldn't be tagged. She kept her eyes on each pitch, waiting for a good one to send over the fence. She scored 3 runs and hit a homer. Ooh, she had a good game. Remember last night when she promised herself she was going to do that? When Mr. Street approached the players after the game, Marcinia crowded in close so he could see her. I just saw some good baseball, Mr. Street said, smiling. Who wants to come to my baseball camp and really learn to play this game? Every hand went up. Mr. Street shook them all. He shook Marcinia's hand last. You got a good arm, little miss, and you run fast, he said. But I don't take girls in my camp. Marcinia looked down so no one would see her disappointment. She began striking dust from her dress. Marcinia's been playing ball with us since we were little kids, Harold told Mr. Street. She's the only player we ever got who steals bases, Clarence said. Marcinia was pleased that her friends had come to her defense, but Mr. Street didn't change his mind. As she walked home, she thought about how these very same boys had teased her when she first started playing baseball with them. Then, when they saw she could run, hit, and throw as well as they could, the teasing stopped. They had let her play. Marcinia decided to give Mr. Street a reason to change his mind. So what do you think she's going to do to change his mind? Find out. Every day, Marcinia played baseball, and every day Mr. Street refused to invite her to his camp. Then a day came when Marcinia got tired of hearing him say, I don't take girls in my camp. That day, when she was on third base in the 9th inning of a tie game, Marcinia decided to take the biggest chance in all baseball. She decided to steal home. When the pitcher drew back his arm to throw the ball to Harold, Marcinia launched into motion. That picture is really cool because you can see she's launching into motion like a rocket. She's taking off as fast as she can. And you can really see it in that picture. That's cool. The catcher snared the pitch in his glove and ran toward Marcinia to tag her out. Marcinia doubled back toward third. When the catcher threw the ball back to the third baseman, Marcinia turned and bolted toward home plate. As the ball sailed over her head, Marcinia pumped her arms and knees harder. With the ball speeding toward home, Marcinia dropped her weight and slid into home plate. She had stolen home and scored the winning run. Oh, wow. See how she's sliding in right before the ball gets there. She barely beat the ball. She did it. She didn't give up. While her teammates celebrated their victory, Marcinia planted her hands on her hips and faced Mr. Street. I am a baseball player, she said. I want to learn to play this game as well as I can. May I come to your camp? Well, little miss, if you can steal home, you can probably do anything you set your mind to, Mr. Street said. You can come to my camp as long as you have your equipment. When Marcinia told her parents the good news about the camp that evening, her father was not pleased. I don't like you acting like such a tomboy, he said with a snap of his evening paper. Besides, you know we don't have any money to spend on. The camp's free, Marcinia said excitedly. Equipment isn't free, Papa said. I have a glove, Marcinia said. Harold gave me his old one. You'll need cleats, and we don't have money for those, Papa added. So unless you're prepared to get them yourself, I think you'll have to forget about that camp. With another snap of Papa's newspaper, Marcinia felt her dream move out of reach. Mr. Street was at the field the next time Marcinia played. Before the game, she mustered all her strength to keep from crying. Mr. Street, she said, I can't come to your camp. I don't have cleats, and my father says we can't afford them. But thank you for inviting me. Although she was sad, Marcinia played as well as she always had. She loved baseball too much not to play with all her heart. Poor Marcinia. That night, unable to sleep, Marcinia gazed through her windows at the full moon glowing in the sky. It was so round and bright, like a brand new baseball. She reached to the floor and took up her baseball glove. She put it on and punched the pocket as if the moon would drop into it like so many fly balls had before. Marcinia wondered sadly if Papa was right. Maybe girls didn't grow up to be ball players after all. But playing baseball was her dream, and Marcinia couldn't imagine doing anything else. The next day after school, Marcinia was the first one at the playing field. Mr. Street was already there, and he waved Marcinia over. You're a good ball player, Marcinia, he said. I want good ball players for my camp. He handed Marcinia a box, and he watched as she opened it. Her eyes widened as she pulled out a shoe with each hand. These weren't just any shoes. These were real baseball cleats. Thank you, Mr. Street. Marcinia was so excited she could barely squeeze out the words. She hugged the shoes to her chest. They were even better than stealing home. Don't you have a game to play? Mr. Street said, nodding toward the field. Yes, I do, Marcinia replied happily. Her fingers flew as they unbuckled her street shoes and laced on her new cleats. They fit perfectly. She ran in them. She jumped in them. She caught and slid in them. And she hit a home run in them. After the game, the boys rushed to Mr. Street, talking over one another about the game. Marcinia lingered at home plate. She stared at her feet, proud of the new scuffs and smudges on her shoes. They had been a little stiff at first, but now that she had played a good game of baseball in them, the cleats were exactly the way she wanted them to be. Mr. Street excused himself from the crowd of boys. I look forward to seeing you in camp, he said to Marcinia. She gave him a hopeful smile, but Marcinia knew she still had one more person to convince before she could officially accept Mr. Street's invitation. She ran home and waited anxiously for her father to return from work. As soon as her father arrived, Marcinia showed him her new cleats. Now, Marcinia, where did you get those shoes? Papa asked sternly. Mr. Street gave them to me, Marcinia said. He wants me to come to his baseball camp. Papa looked down at Marcinia's baseball cleats, which were already scuffed and dusted with field dirt. You must be a pretty good ball player for an important man like Mr. Street to buy you those shoes, he admitted. Then he smiled. You know, I don't like charity, but I reckon we can't give those shoes back in this state. I'll have to thank Mr. Street for his generosity when I take you down to that baseball camp. Oh my goodness, look how happy Marcinia looks. Marcinia could hardly believe her ears. Papa had agreed. Her chest filled with joy, and she threw her arms around her father, hugging him hard. You'll see how good I am, she cried. Marcinia felt as happy and proud as if she had reached right up in the sky and caught the moon in her glove. She was on her way to becoming a real baseball player. She would make her dream come true. So, remember what I told you at the beginning, that she wanted to become a baseball player, and she did. So that was just the very beginning. But here she is. At the end of the book, it shows us a picture of the real Marcinia, and she did become a professional baseball player. And this was way long ago, like 70 years ago. In 1953. It says in 1953, when she was 32 years old, her dream, and she went by Tony for short, her dream of playing professional baseball came true. She signed to play second base for the Negro League Indianapolis Clowns, filling the position vacated by Hank Aaron's move to the major leagues. So not only did she get to be a professional baseball player, she took a man's place. Hank Aaron is a super famous baseball player, and she got to play in his place. That is pretty awesome. But it took a long time. Sometimes when you have big dreams and big goals, you have to work for a really long time for them to come true. She had to wait until she was 32 years old, but she never gave up. That's the important part. So I am going to send each of you guys a picture from this book. Let me find it. This picture right here. So the book was called Catching the Moon, remember? So when she was wishing for she could be in the camp that night, and she was looking at the moon and imagined that it was a giant baseball. So I'm going to send you a picture of this page, and I want you guys to imagine what is your catching the moon? What is your dream? What is something that you wish so badly you could do, or something you wish so much that you could be when you grow up? So I want you to imagine that, and then I want you to make your own moon, and on a piece of paper you can draw it or paint it or use construction paper that I sent home with you, and make a picture of a moon, and then write on there what your dream is. What moon are you going to catch? I can't wait to hear what some of your dreams are, and then I can't wait to watch you work for them. I love you guys. Miss you. See you when Fortress comes back.